Chapter 16 of Murder in the Maze by JJ Connington. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Last Attack in the Maze. When Ardsley and the Chief Constable entered the other room, they found Wendover with Ernest, Shandon, and Arthur. In the stress of his emotion, Ernest seemed to have flown to his usual comforter, for he had a decanter and a siphon at his elbow. Arthur Hawker seemed to be endeavoring to restrain his feelings to the best of his ability, but it was obvious at a glance that his nerves were all on edge. "Miss Forrest isn't here?" Sir Clinton inquired, though the question was needless. "No," Ernest hastened to explain, "she's not here. I think she must be somewhere else, upstairs in her own room perhaps, or else somewhere about the house. Or she may have gone out with Torrance. He's gone for a walk. Quite possibly she went out with him. Very thoughtful of them to leave us to our grief. Very thoughtful. I don't know how we'll get over this. I really don't know. Sylvia was so useful about the place. Made things run so smoothly, you know. We'll miss her terribly." He drank some of his whiskey and soda. "Where's Dennis?" demanded Arthur, as though to show that he had himself under control. "He's busy," Sir Clinton explained. "He's lucky to have something to be busy with," Arthur commented. "I wish I'd had something to do to take my mind off this business just now." Ernest drank some more whiskey and soda thoughtfully, then put his hand into his pocket and seemed to feel for something. "I've lost my cigar case," he announced disconsolately. "Really, everything seems to be going wrong together these last few days." Wendover opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again as he caught Sir Clinton's frown, and remembered the Chief Constable's caution to him about the case. "Lost your case?" Sir Clinton inquired. "That's a nuisance." Ernest was still feeling vaguely in his pocket as though he expected to unearth the cigar case in some remote corner. "It's been missing for a day or two," he complained. "I can't think what's become of it. I've hunted through all my other suits and it isn't there. And I've searched all over the house too, and yet I can't find it. I suppose I'll have to buy another. And that's such a nuisance, you know. One gets accustomed to the thing one uses. A new one won't feel the same for long enough." "You can't remember where you put it down last, I suppose?" Sir Clinton asked. "It's always a good plan to go back to the time you can remember using it last. If I'm not mistaken, you had it with you in the maze when you were attacked. You told me you took out a cigar then. Does that suggest anything? You may be able to pick up the thread now and remember using it again after that." Ernest Shandon's face lighted up with a certain dull satisfaction. "No, now I remember quite well. You've reminded me of it. Isn't it funny how one can forget a thing and then, if one gets a jog to one's memory, the whole thing comes back again? I often find that. Quite often." "So you know where it is now? Well, that's always a relief." Ernest's face fell again. "Yes, I remember where I dropped it. But I can't get it tonight, that's the worst of it. I dropped it in the maze when I was shot at. I was sitting there in Helen's bower, and when I jumped up the thing fell off my knee. It must be lying there yet. I'd forgotten all about it. Those cigars won't be much good now," he ended regretfully. "Why not go and get it?" Wendover asked with a tinge of malice. He had not forgiven Ernest for his pusillanimous display on the night that Sylvia was shot. Ernest looked round at him, wide-eyed in astonishment. He took off his glasses, polished them carefully, replaced them on his nose, and continued his staring examination of Wendover. "Well, really," he managed to say at last, "that's a very strange suggestion, Wendover, very strange. Do you imagine that I'd go out in the dark, down to the maze, and hunt about for my case? Why, it would be foolhardy, positively tempting Providence to do that. This murderer fellow may be lurking outside the house door for all we can tell, and you calmly propose that I should walk straight out and put myself in his way. Well, really." He turned to the decanter at his side and poured out a fresh stiff glass. Arthur Hawkhurst had listened to his uncle's exhibition of caution with unconcealed contempt, and he now broke in with all the brutality of youth. "Cold feet, eh?" Ernest seemed to resent the imputation with a certain dull animosity. "It seems to me only common sense, Arthur. Why should I run any risks? I've been attacked once, and since they didn't succeed in damaging me then, they'll obviously be waiting for another chance. I think it would be a stupid move to put myself in the way, a very stupid move indeed. And I think most sensible people would agree with me. If you don't, and if you want something to do, you might go down to the maze and get me my cigar case yourself. That would be better than sitting there sneering at your elders." He assumed the air of one who had just administered a well-merited rebuke, but his dignity was slightly diminished by the necessity of putting his glasses straight. Arthur seemed to take his uncle's protest as a taunt. "Think I'm in a funk, too? I'll go and get your case if you like." Ernest appeared to be horrified at the suggestion. "I couldn't think of it," he exclaimed, almost with animation. "Why, anything might happen out in the dark there. You're not to go, Arthur. I forbid it." Arthur's lips shut tight for a moment as he looked at his uncle. "It doesn't matter a damn to me whether you forbid it or not. I've offered to go, and I'm not going to draw back now and let people think I was only bragging. Besides, how do you know anyone's after me? They're after you, all right. They've attacked you already. But that's no reason why they should worry about me, is it? I guess you're the one they've marked down, Uncle." "Oh, indeed, do you think so?" said Ernest uncomfortably. "I don't think that's a very nice thing to say, Arthur. It's one of these things that may have too much truth in them to be altogether a joke, you know. I wish you wouldn't say them. I don't like them, I really don't. And I don't want you to go out of the house tonight. Suppose anything were to happen to you." He paused for a moment, then added as a final argument, "We've got trouble enough on our hands just now." Sir Clinton was watching Arthur keenly, and the boy turned round in time to catch the expression on the chief constable's face. "You think I was just bragging? All right, you'll see. I'll take one of the cars down to the maze, and I'll be back in 10 minutes. He turned on his heel and walked out of the room. To Wendover's surprise, Sir Clinton made no attempt to detain him. Ernest's face showed marked annoyance. Evidently he could not help seeing that his supercaution had been brought into the limelight once again. "I think that's a silly trick," he complained. "What's the good of running unnecessary risks? I can get along without my cigar case till tomorrow. And here he goes off posing to himself as a young hero. Well, really, you know, he's only a foolhardy young ass. But he was always like that. I wish Sylvia had been here. She could manage him. I never seemed to have any influence with him somehow." Ardsley, obviously bored, rose and left the room. Sir Clinton took the opportunity of changing the subject. "While your nephew's away, Mr. Shandon, I think I'd better take the opportunity of giving you some information. You remember telling me something about a check and a missing counterfoil?" "Yes," Ernest admitted, apparently not averse to the fresh subject. "I thought I ought to tell you about that. It may not have been important, but I thought you ought to have all the information about everything, even if it didn't seem to be anything very vital. You understand? One never knows how one thing may hinge on to another, if you see what I mean. And it certainly seemed a strange thing to me. Very rum." "I've looked into the matter," Sir Clinton went on, "and I think I've succeeded in doing what's probably the most important thing from your point of view. I've recovered a few £1,000, which somebody might have got away with. You'll find it in your safe tonight. It will be in notes. You'd better take the numbers of them. I haven't had time to do that, and it might be as well to know them." Ernest's eyes lighted up when he heard the result of Sir Clinton's work, but the brief illumination died and was followed by a depressed expression. "Does this mean there'll be a prosecution, and I'll have to give evidence? That'll be a troublesome business." Sir Clinton reassured him with a gesture. "Well, perhaps we'd better not start crossing bridges till we come to them. Let's leave the matter for the present. It's not for me to advise you whether to force on a case or not. I'll even refrain from mentioning the name of the man who took the money." "Oh, I've got a pretty good notion of that," Ernest protested, with a certain air of low cunning which sat ill on his dull features. "I may not be very clever, you know, but I can put 2 and 2 together all right." "Then we'll leave it at that," said Sir Clinton, and his tone closed the discussion on that point. For a time they sat in silence. Wendover could not quite understand Sir Clinton's manoeuvres. Quite obviously he had given Arthur the last spur which had driven him into this expedition to the maze, and Wendover was inclined to agree with Ernest that it was a foolhardy business. He waited with some anxiety for the boy's return. All at once they heard the sound of hasty footsteps in the hall, and the door was flung open, and Arthur hurried into the room. Wendover noticed that, though excited, he was in no panic. "You were right enough, Uncle," he exclaimed, still standing with the handle of the door in his hand. "The beggar had a shot at me just at the entrance to the maze." Ernest nodded his head with an attempt at sapience. I told you so, he said. I told you so. But of course you wouldn't believe me. No, you knew more about it than I did. But you see now. Come along, the lot of you, Arthur cried. We'll nab the beggar this time. He can't be far away yet. Sit down, Sir Clinton ordered calmly. He's had any amount of time to get clear away. We'll never catch him in the dark. I must hear how it happened first of all. Now give me every last detail you can think of. Arthur seemed sobered by the matter-of-fact air of the chief constable. He sat down and began his story without more ado. I took out the two-seater from the garage, he explained, and bucketed down to the maze as quick as I could. It's a dark night outside, not even a star showing. I left the headlights on when I stopped the car, and I left the engine running as well. It wasn't going to take me any time to get to Helen's bower. I got out and crossed over to the entrance to the maze that's nearest the road. It was pretty dark, but I could find my way all right. You heard nobody about? Asked Wendover. Nothing but the beat of the engine. Just as I got to the entrance and was going inside, I heard an air gun go off quite close to me, no distance at all, I should say, and I felt something hit me about the breast pocket. Sir Clinton leaned forward. Don't touch, he said, pointing to the side of Arthur's dinner jacket. You hadn't a coat on, I see? Arthur looked down. The feathering of one of the lethal darts was protruding from his jacket. Oh, it stuck, did it? He said. I thought it had failed to get through the cloth. It's driven into my leather cigar case, I expect. Sir Clinton made a rapid examination and then cautiously withdrew the dart. Inspection of the cigar case showed that the point of the missile had embedded itself in one of the cigars. That saved you a nasty prick, was all the comment the chief constable made. Let's hear the rest. I was just going to start after the beggar, Arthur went on, when suddenly there was a yell from the road. When I looked round, there was old Mrs. Thornton having a fit of hysterics or something over on the road, right in the beam of the headlights. Who is Mrs. Thornton? Inquired Sir Clinton. She's the wife of the lodge-keeper at the east gate. There's nothing wrong with the Thorntons, Wendover hastened to interject. I've known them for 20 years, and a decenter old couple you couldn't find anywhere. Sir Clinton made a gesture as though brushing aside the interruption. And then? He demanded. Well, there she was, screaming her head off, Arthur continued. She'd heard the sound of the air gun, and of course air guns aren't liked hereabouts nowadays. So she just started to yell at once. She thought it was meant for her, it seems. I hustled her into the car and drove her home full tilt. Then, when I'd got rid of her, I put up the hood and side curtains and came back here again, hell for leather. I guessed that the side curtains would stop anything, if the beggar had another try, and I had the throttle about full open as I passed the maze, so he hadn't much of a mark anyway. Wendover's opinion of Arthur went up considerably during this narrative. The youngster seemed to have had sense enough to take precautions once he was convinced of the reality of the danger. And there was no doubt about the attack. Wendover had seen the depth to which the dart had penetrated the cigar case and its contents. It must have been fired at very close range indeed. Said Sir Clinton. Now I think we'll take your advice and get down to the maze. Much to the surprise of them all, Ernest got to his feet with the rest. He evidently saw their expressions, for he seemed rather shamefaced. I think I'll come along with you, he said diffidently. Then, with an assumption of confidence, he added, I know you've all been sneering at me for taking care of my skin. I'll just show you that it was caution and not because I was afraid. I can take the same risks as the rest of you. On reflection, Wendover was hardly so much impressed by this offer. Obviously the murderer, having made his attack, would at once set about getting away from the neighborhood of the maze, and by this time he would probably be far enough away to avoid pursuit. Ernest, therefore, was risking very little by joining the party. Take out the limousine, Arthur, he suggested. It'll hold the lot of us, and the glass will give us good cover. Wendover smiled at the return of Ernest's caution, though he admitted that the choice was sound enough. They hurried to the garage, and Arthur drove them down to the maze. Once there, Ernest seemed to feel that he had perhaps been over-courageous. Somebody ought to look after the car, he suggested. If we leave it here, the fellow may steal up and go off with it, suppose he is lurking about. And where should we be then? He'd have got clean away and left us standing. I think I'd better sit in the car while you hunt about, and then we'll know. At the sight of the open contempt on Sir Clinton's face, He let his proposal die away before it was completed, and crawled reluctantly out of the car with the others. He even made a show of eagerness and led the way to the maze entrance. "You're off the line a bit, Uncle," Arthur pointed out. "I can't see very well in the dark," Ernest complained, "and this grass is simply soaked with dew. I've got my feet all wet. Such a nuisance." He tripped over something and came heavily to the ground. A heartfelt oath reached their ears. "I'm wet all down the front now," Ernest wailed. "I fell over some damn thing or other and I've hurt my toe. I hope it hasn't split the nail. What is this thing, damn it?" He seemed to be feeling about in the dark. "Why, it's the air gun!" Sir Clinton's flash lamp suddenly shot out its glare, and in the cone of illumination they saw the grotesque figure of Ernest kneeling on the ground with the air gun clutched in his hand. He rose to his feet laboriously. "I'm soaking with that dew. Very heavy it's been tonight. Wasn't it a godsend that I had a spot of whiskey just before coming out? That'll keep a cold away. I'll have another one, a whiskey hot, when I get back again." Sir Clinton paid no attention to Ernest's babble. He took the air gun gingerly from his discoverer's hand and held it out to Arthur in the glare of the flash lamp. "One of the local armory, I suppose?" Arthur examined it for a moment. "Yes, that's one of ours." The honors of discovery, however, seemed destined to fall to Ernest. "Here," he demanded, "turn that light over this way, will you? There's something round my foot." They could hear him kicking in the obscurity. Sir Clinton swung the beam round and stooped down. "It's a bit of black thread you've got tangled up in. Wait a jiffy." He freed Ernest from the fibre and began to trace along the thread with his light. It seemed to be merely the end of a long tentacle extending out from the entrance to the maze. "Ariadne's clue," examined Wendover, when he saw the direction in which the filament lay. Sir Clinton nodded briefly. "You people had better get back to the car," he said. "I don't want the ground trampled here. We can look at it in the morning. I'm just going to follow up this thread. I'll be back in a minute or two." Holding his light low, he disappeared into the intricacies of the maze, while Wendover shepherded the others back to the car. Once round a corner or two and well out of sight of the rest, Sir Clinton ceased to trouble about the thread and made his way direct to one centre of the maze. He sought about for a time, evidently fruitlessly, and then made his way to the other centre. Here his search was more successful. Among some bushes in the enclosure, he unearthed a suitcase. "Well, that was a long shot," he admitted to himself, though with evident satisfaction. "He's evidently not too sure that he's taken me in with his soft solder, and he's provided for contingencies. Let's see." He opened the suitcase and scrutinized one or two of the garments in it. Complete change of clothes and no marking on so much as a handkerchief. Quite right. He reclosed the suitcase and put it back into the hiding place in which he had found it. Then he retraced his steps in the maze until he came to the black thread which he proceeded to follow to the end. "Now we'll go back to the house," he proposed, when he rejoined the others at the car. "That thread led me to the boathouse." "So the attack was made from the river?" Wendover asked. "It's strange that he didn't pitch his gun into the water, isn't it?" Sir Clinton said. "One might have expected him to get rid of it in the easiest way." "I expect he got a bit of a shock," Arthur suggested. "He must have known that he hit me squarely, and yet nothing happened. That would be a bit of a surprise to him, wouldn't it? Perhaps he got rattled." "Lucky for you there wasn't a second shot," was Sir Clinton's comment. "You could hardly expect your cigar case to save you twice running." When they reached Whistlefield again, they found Ardsley talking to Torrance, who had returned from his walk. He had been out alone, it appeared. Vera had gone to her own room when Ardsley had given his news about Sylvia and had not reappeared again. Sir Clinton took Ardsley aside for a moment. "You've got a nurse upstairs in that room?" Ardsley assented. "One of them's going to watch all night. There's a superstition some people have that one shouldn't leave a dead person alone. I don't mind being superstitious for once, if it's in a good cause." "No one must get into the room, of course." "No one shall," said Ardsley definitely. Sir Clinton seemed to be satisfied, and Ardsley left the room. The chief constable had one more private conversation still to carry through. He took Ernest Shandon into the study and closed the door. "I can put my hand on the murderer now, Mr. Shandon, so you needn't be nervous about that. But I'm rather troubled about one point. This is going to lead to the devil of a scandal if I arrest him. Are you anxious for that?" Ernest seemed staggered by this way of looking at things. "Well, really, I don't see what you mean. It's a bit obscure, isn't it? I must confess I don't quite follow you, if you understand me." "I'll put it this way. I could arrest the fellow tonight. I know where he is. I'd have no trouble over that. But I think I can make surer of him if I wait till tomorrow morning. I've got to risk his bolting. I've that possibility in view. He might get away. But if he got away, would you worry much? Think of the scandal it would save, and it's going to be a big one. And the trial will be a most laborious affair, too. What do you think? Shall I arrest him now, or wait till the morning and risk his getting away?" Ernest pondered over the problem, but he seemed incapable of giving any help. "I really don't know," he said. "You're too deep for me, really. I can't make out what you're driving at." Sir Clinton's face showed disappointment. "There are some things that a police official can't put into plain words, you know. I can't say outright that I'd be glad to see the beggar off the premises. Can't you see what I mean?" But Ernest shook his head dully, and Sir Clinton gave up the effort. "Oh, very well," he said. "The responsibility's mine in any case. I'll wait till tomorrow and chance it. But I can't say I've got much help from you, Mr. Shandon. When the scandal comes, you needn't blame me." He seemed to consider something for a moment, then he added, "By the way, I suppose you won't mind putting me up for the night? I'm taking all the responsibility I've any use for as it is, and I think I ought to be able to say I was here tonight." Ernest seemed to be rendered completely owlish by this last request, but he assented willingly enough. "And Wendover too, of course," added Sir Clinton. He paused for a moment as though in doubt, before speaking again. "I think I'd better ring up the police station if you don't mind, Mr. Shandon. I'll do it now." Ernest, with a shameless curiosity, followed him to the instrument and waited until he got the connection. "Sir Clinton Driffield speaking. Sergeant, will you be good enough to buy me another tin of Navy Cut, same as the last you got, first thing tomorrow morning? I've run out of tobacco. Send a man up with it, will you?" "Yes, Navy Cut. Thanks." Sir Clinton turned away from the instrument and noticed his host hovering close behind him. "It's a handy thing to be a chief constable, isn't it? I'd run out of tobacco, and I won't have time to go down to the village tomorrow morning. I shall arrest that fellow first thing after breakfast, and the formalities may take some time, you know." End of chapter 16.